What's going on, folks? We have a great show for you today. Aaron Rodgers is not just an NFL superstar.
See, again, that's why people are like, no one knew your vaccination status, you lied to your teammates. No. Day 3 of training camp, they sent this stooge in, and he showed these slides about what your vaccination percentage was in your team, where you compare to the rest of the league. And I started asking him questions about liability. Oh, I'm not a lawyer. Okay.
But one of the only athletes to publicly take on Big Pharma.
If science can't be questioned, it's not science anymore, it's propaganda.
Ooh, wow. You're going to start some shit.
And call out the psychotic mainstream media.
You know, the bottom line requires compliance. The more compliance, the more sales.
Make sure they're taking those pills.
Yeah, it's fucking
Brought
wild.
to you by Pfizer.
75% of all television advertisement is all pharmaceutical drugs.
In 2020, pharmacy accounted for 75% of the total ad spend. They're the #1 lobbyist in Washington, paying off Democrats and Republicans. So if something seems a little weird in this country around Big Pharma, it's probably because it is.
And aren't we one of the few countries that allows
Only
for...
two.
Only two, right?
Only
Yeah.
two. And the other one is New Zealand. And New Zealand is far more restrictive than us.
Yeah.
But all those other countries, they think that we're out of our fucking minds.
On Joe Rogan, he exposed the insane NFL's policies. We're going to watch more of that soon. He constantly questioned and dropped facts about Big Pharma.
And obviously I didn't have one, so we were given wristbands too. So everybody in the facility knew who was vaxxed and who wasn't vaxxed. Vaxxed was green, non-vaxxed was yellow.
Oof. Advertising for all these things that are going to make you happy. There's a girl running through a wheat field and there's great music playing, and she was,
And here's the side effects.
Yeah.
But then we're going to finish with a happy thought, running through a meadow.
And stood up for small businesses that politicians don't seem to care much about.
And small business is the backbone of America, right? And how many thousands and thousands and thousands of small businesses closed and never opened again? Restaurants, bars.
Big Pharma has swallowed up our government. Big Pharma has swallowed up our media. Big Pharma has swallowed up both sides of politics. Big Pharma has swallowed up both administrations. And until people address the root of this issue, the corruption's not going to stop. Hope you enjoy this show. We're live. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Monday episode of Dream Rare Podcast. I had to cover this Aaron Rodgers podcast on Joe Rogan because Aaron Rodgers really crushed it. If you guys don't follow football and know who he is, he's probably one of the best quarterbacks of the modern era. He was the MVP last year, so he's not a small fry type of guy. A lot of media coverage, a lot of respect in the league. You know, he did not get vaccinated, and he constantly went on radio shows and talked really honest stuff. I could tell he was a smart guy for the whole year, but he never really did a full sit down like with someone like Joe Rogan and really talk for an hour. He did a few on Pat McAfee's show. It was cool, but he finally sat down with Rogan, and my goodness, man, Aaron Rodgers crushing, just speaking so much truth. So I cut up about 10 clips from it, short ones. I don't want to get hit for copyright. All copyright respect to the Joe Rogan Experience and Spotify. But let's just go through a few of these clips because for someone that high profile like Djokovic, Aaron Rodgers is on that level in the NFL. For him to really go out there and speak the truth for not just himself, but really the millions of people who've been discriminated against, lied about, called a conspiracy theorist, bullied by their job, bullied by their country. This was a special moment, and I think it's the best podcast I've heard in a long time. So I had to clip up a lot of stuff. Here's the first clip I have. I have about 10 clips for you. He talks about what was going on with the NFL players, how they were really bullying not the high-profile players, but the lowest-profile players into getting vaccinated. And, this is very relatable because this wasn't just happening in the NFL. It was happening all over the country. Let's take a watch.
But it was difficult because we were separated. There was a whole other situation that was going on that, also was going on in the rest of society is that my non-vax teammates who were on the bubble, right? So 53 guys make the active roster, 16 on the practice squad. So that's 69 guys on the squad. There's 90 in camp, right? So of the, I said 7, I think it was about 10 guys not vaxxed. only a few of us were guaranteed roster spots, like we were going to be on the team, and there's a lot of bubble guys. The general managers, and there was talk around the league how general managers were not going to keep bubble non-vax players, right? So they were already up against it. Not only did non-vax players have a harder chance of making the squad, but they also had an almost 0% opportunity to get a workout afterwards. So if you get cut, right?
So that's him explaining, like, for him, he's the MVP. He's not going to get cut, obviously. They're going to let him get away with it. But if you're on the bubble, if you're one of these players, like most people in the NFL, where you're fighting for your job, you're fighting for your family, you're fighting for a spot on the team, you know, they had these discussions like, well, let's not hire these people anymore. And it's not just in the NFL, it's all over the place. And I think I have 9 more clips. Please stay tuned. But, you know, I think the greatest show of, like, supremacy when it comes to the working class versus the elite class is the forced masking. You still have at hundreds or thousands of restaurants across the country, works, major corporations, you have the workers in masks, right? The workers have to put a cloth over their breathing hole. Zuckerberg admitted on the Rogan podcast that, you know, there's more nonverbal communication than verbal. He's creating this metaverse where you have, you know, so your facial expressions. So we're allowed facial expressions in the metaverse, and it's so important in the metaverse, more important than speaking. But apparently it's not important enough in the real world, and we don't have that right in reality, and we get banned off of social media for saying that it's important, and kids are having speech delays, etc. So you see this supremacy when you have these restaurants where you have thousands of people walking around, but the workers have to wear the mask. Why do the workers have to wear the mask? Is their air scientifically more toxic than the elite class? This is like the new version of slavery. You know, I will equate it all day to a slave master. Any employer that is forcing a mask on your worker while hundreds of people are walking around unmasked because they live at the property or they're eating there, you are the new slave master. You're evil. The science doesn't say that your air is better or worse than their air because they're a worker and you can afford to sit there and not have to work. It's psychotic. And just like he's saying there, you see the eliteness of, like, well, if you're a big player, yeah, I mean, we're still going to treat you like garbage, but you know, if you're a, you know, bubble NFL player, you're not going to make the team unless you're vaccinated. So really what they're doing is not bullying the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, and the Warren Buffetts of the world, but they're bullying the, you know, illegal immigrants that they claim to care so much about, the people that are working at mom and pop shops, and most average Americans who are on the bubble in life. So you see the parallels of the NFL and how they did this. They're strong arming people that are defenseless the most and the middle and lower class the most. He talked about how they had 2 classes of players. I got lots of clips, folks, so I'm going to keep it rolling.
That there was clearly 2 classes of player at the facility. There was the vaxxed and the unvaxxed. And the vaxxed had full privileges. They tested once every 2 weeks. They had full privileges on the road. They could go out to dinner on the road. They could go to a concert in town. They could go to a comedy show that was in town. They could be at any place they wanted to, right, and live life normally. Non-vaxxed, fully masked, 0 privileges on the road. You could not go into establishments with more than 15 people. You could not be around more than 3 individuals from the team outside the facility. All these different, what I think now we all realize were crazy policies.
So I had done this report last year because they put out a memo of, this is if you're vaccinated in the NFL and this is if you're unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, you're getting tested every day or every other day. If you're unvaccinated, it's every couple weeks. If you're vaccinated, you can't go to a restaurant. So it was basically trying to strong arm and bully people into getting vaccinated. And as the information started coming out that people who were vaccinated could also get it, it doesn't make sense to test the unvaccinated. If vaccinated people can truly get and spread the virus just like unvaccinated people, why wouldn't they be tested as much? You get what I'm saying? Scientifically, why wouldn't they get tested as well? Because it's all about compliance. It's all about bullying people into getting this product. And it's evil. It's insane. And the NFL was among the worst of just segregating and treating unvaccinated players like slaves, prisoners, basically serfs. And Aaron Rodgers could get away with it because he's a top dog, but for the hundreds of people that don't make hundreds of millions of dollars, and maybe they're only in the NFL for a year or two, and they, this might be the only money they'll ever be able to get from sports, they were the ones that were bullied the hardest, and a lot of them took the vaccine not because they thought it was the right thing to do, but because they literally had no chance of keeping their job, and this happened all over the country. Aaron Rodgers even said they had to wear wristbands. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
And obviously I didn't have one, so we were given wristbands too. So everybody in the facility knew who was vaxxed and who wasn't vaxxed. Vaxxed was green, non-vaxxed was yellow.
Oof.
So already this weird, like wearing your colors out there. And I think, to do an aside here, there was a lot of shaming involved in it. There was a lot of public shaming that was attempted to coerce people to get vaccinated. Because not only are you wearing a yellow wristband, you're the only ones wearing masks. And you have to work out by yourself.
Can we just say a prayer for Aaron and just a thank you? Because obviously everybody plays their part. I don't care if you're down here on the social or athletic scale. That's not what I think about humanity. But it's a shame that we have so many cowardly athletes, so many cowardly celebrities that do nothing for us, right? When all of this is going on and we're all being treated like garbage, Aaron Rodgers was one of the few people, big or small, speaking out. Even Djokovic, his actions speak louder than his words, but he doesn't really say too much. Aaron Rodgers has been for a year now calling out the hypocrisy and doing it with class and doing it with intellect. Like every time I listen to him, I'm like, oh, this guy, he's not operating just off of instinct. He's reading, researching, listening to, I'm not saying me, but people similar that are talking about it. Who knows where he's getting his info from, but this guy knows what he's talking about. And when you're educated, it's harder for them to bully you. So that's what we try to do on my platform. I never told people what to do because I don't even think I'm allowed to on these networks that are run by psychotic, big pharma, sellout, idiot weasels. But it's like if I can at least inform you with education and knowledge and information and scientific studies and data and liability shields and how this stuff works, then you can, it's like, it's harder for them to bully you. I'm unbullyable with this. If anyone ever came to my door like those, remember when they said they're coming to your door to tell you about vaccination status? I was hoping they did because I wanted to have a conversation with them and shut them down and laugh at them because I know more than them probably. So it's always good to know a lot, but here's real quick, and we're going to play this clip. He says he was called a conspiracy theorist earlier on for saying that vaccinated people could catch the virus. And we're not going to allow them to hijack history. We're going to prove that they lied to the world and told people this because they're trying to backtrack now, and we're not going to let them.
Was they said it's not possible for a vaccinated person, to contract or transmit COVID if they've been vaccinated. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Because I showed up and 5 people, non-players, 5 people fully vaxxed are out with COVID. So what are you talking about? And he said, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, boy.
And I said, no, I just think I'm a realist. I'm just looking at the facts here. Like
what point in the pandemic was this?
This was like beginning of August.
Make no mistakes, folks. They're going to try to lie and say, oh, we always knew it was just going to slightly protect from hospitalizations, or we always knew, blah, blah, blah. They didn't know. They were covering up natural immunity. They were acting as if it was a conspiracy theory. They were writing articles about it. In 2020, they were laughing at conspiracy theorists for suggesting that mandatory vaccinations were around the corner when they obviously were. So as they're going to pretend to lie and be like, we never said that getting a vaccine was going to stop you from getting sick and transmitting it. They never said that, really? Let's roll the clip, because let's not let them hijack history and distort history. This is real history, and this should be taught to kids in schools. This is what they told us.
We're not in a position where we think that any virus, including the Delta virus, which is much more transmissible and more deadly in terms of unvaccinated people, the various shots that people are getting now cover that. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
I would never talk as recklessly as them. They told millions upon tens of millions of people that. That's a lie. And they're going to act like that wasn't a lie. They lied every step of the way. Lie, 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 lie. We can ask ourselves, did they lie because they got misled? Did they read the data wrong? Were they optimistic? Were they hopeful? You can make every excuse under the book, but as we're going to play earlier, what about the fact that Joe Rogan pointed out on this podcast that Big Pharma is paying up to 70 to 75% of television ads? It sounds almost fake, right? It sounds like maybe Joe Rogan made a mistake. So I looked it up because I'm like, is that true? In 2020, Big Pharma paid 75% of television advertisement. They're the #1 lobbyist in Washington by far. You think oil and guns are paying politicians? It's nothing. It's pennies compared to what Big Pharma is paying politicians. They've swallowed up the Democratic Party. They've swallowed up the Trump administration, turned him from a vaccine skeptic into a vaccine salesman. They've swallowed up big tech. So here's the little scheme they're doing. I told people this for 2 years, but we're going to break it down again. Okay, so when the emergency gets launched, they don't have liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. Operation Warp Speed, they get a bunch of money. Now this product's out. They give it to tens of millions of people. They tell them that it's going to stop them from getting sick or spreading it. It's not true, but it doesn't matter. They could just keep lying and lying and lying and lying because they already shielded themselves from liability. They don't have liability for side effects. They don't have liability for injuries. They don't have liability for deaths. They don't have liability if they make a mistake and lie to you about what the product does. They have no liability. So as they're rolling out this product, these companies are making tens of billions of dollars. Big tech, their friends in big tech, their friends in big media are covering up any sort of opponent of the product. This is the greatest product ever. It's a great thing. It's awesome. It works great. It works like we say. Yeah, we can make mistakes, whatever. But there's a New York Post report that just came out that says that the new booster hasn't ever gone through human trials. That's what the booster says. I have to relook at the article just to make 100% sure. In fact, I'm going to look at it now just to see what that headline says. But it's like, they don't really care, guys, because they don't have liability. They just are making a bunch of money. And apparently they're not making enough money because they're suing each other. Moderna's suing Pfizer for their mRNA technology that Pfizer used in 2021 rather, with the COVID vaccine, but Moderna's had a patent on it since 2010 or 2016. The NIH is suing Moderna because they want more money or whatever or credit for the patent. Yeah, this is the New York Post. They said latest COVID booster shots will be released before human testing is complete. It's like, why should they care? They're going to make tens of billions of dollars. You can't complain about side effects over anything that happens because big tech and big media will cover it up. They don't have to pay you out because they have liability shield. So if a tree falls in the woods, does it even happen? This is the logic that they're going by. Just keep doing it. And as we're going to find out later, and if anybody's ever read about pharma, so many times they've been caught. Here's Pfizer, fined $2.3 billion for illegal marketing and off-label drug case. How dangerous is it that we're not allowed to question a new Pfizer Operation Warp Speed product when they're responsible for one of the biggest illegal marketing scams in modern history? As part of the settlement, Pfizer had to pay a criminal of $1.195 billion, the largest criminal fine ever imposed in the USA for any matter, according to the Justice Department. So we're letting criminals or people who have settled out of criminal fines have this immunity shield, not just from side effects, injuries, and deaths from their product, but also they have like immunity from any sort of journalism or questions about how their product even works in the first place, as Fauci, or rather Joe Biden, Rochelle Walensky, and Rachel Maddow had promised people the world and under-delivered. It's insane, but back to the Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what's going on is so blatantly obvious, and until people wake up to this reality, it's not going to stop. Sometimes they get bopped, we made $20 billion. This is a hypothetical, but it's pretty close to what really happens in the real world. We made $20 billion. Oh no, we got caught. Now we got to pay a $4 billion lawsuit. Oh, do the math. 20 billion minus 4 billion. Oh, they still made 16 billion. They don't give a crap. They're going to keep scamming the public. They don't care. Because they're going to pay less in fines probably than they made in profits while they all sue each other to try to make the cash cow. Here's Aaron Rodgers exposing the NFL sending stooges to the training facility to, I guess, try to coerce them into getting vaccinated more. Let's watch.
Compliance.
Yes.
With the vaccine.
Compliance.
And if you don't, we're going to send a stooge to your team to show you graphs of your vaccination percentage of your team compared to the rest of the league, which actually happened.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the stooge like?
Oh, I mopped the floor with him.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm going to play another clip. He says he mopped the floor with them. Guys, you can mop the floor with these people too if you arm yourself with information, with truth, with knowledge, with scientific studies. A lot of these propagandists, they just shill for Big Pharma. They don't know anything. So if you're grounded in truth, if you're grounded in information about liability, about the PrEP Act, about past products, about everything, about how Big Pharma works, you're going to make these people look stupid. So that's what Aaron Rodgers did. He said they came to the facility and he made them look like idiots. Let's watch.
See, again, that's why people are like, no one knew your vaccination status. You lied to your teammates. No. Day 3 of training camp, they sent this stooge in, and he showed these slides about what your vaccination percentage was in your team, where you compare to the rest of the league. And I started asking him questions about liability. Oh, I'm not a lawyer. Okay, cool. But you're in here talking about all these different things.
That's a great question. He said, what about liability? Oh, I'm not a lawyer. Of course you're not a lawyer. So you're going to come into an NFL facility trying to coerce people into getting an Operation Warp Speed funded product that you have no liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. Big Pharma has no liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. The FDA has no liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. But you're going to push the product as if, everyone needs to get it. Okay, sure. So who has liability in case something goes wrong? Like when you watch a pill commercial that says, here's the side effects. They have to list those because if they don't list those, they could probably get sued. When you have a liability shield from the government under the PrEP Act, you don't have that liability. So it's this evil sicko scheme that they're doing, whether they're mandating it or not. Obviously mandating it's worse, but this coercion where it's like they know exactly what they're doing, folks. And the problem is people are undereducated, or people are, they don't have the confidence to stand up for themselves because it's really tough. But once you start asking these people questions, their whole thing disintegrates. Let's keep listening to the stooges that came to, Packers camp.
And you don't talk about anybody's personal health issues. There's 0 exemptions. You took out religious exemptions. You took out PEG exemptions. You took out anybody's ability to have an opinion. I don't want to do this. Yeah. Well, it's not only going to affect your day-to-day status on the team, but your ability to get a job, your ability to keep a job, your ability to get a tryout if you get cut from this team, because you want to put a percentage above 90% of your team where you guys can have some sort of like special virtue. Like, look how amazing we are. We're above the 90% threshold here.
Interesting stuff. So they sent a stooge to basically try to bully players into getting vaccinated, bully the team into. As he'll reveal, just like with a lot of stuff, they kind of strong arm you financially, not only keep you from a job, but start to threaten your team. If an unvaccinated player gets an outbreak, then we're going to take your money away and you're going to ruin the game. He also revealed later in the interview, I don't have the clip, but he revealed during the playoffs they started laxing the testing policy because probably, I don't know for sure, but it sounds like Aaron Rodgers is suggesting that the NFL knows that the playoffs are a big deal and they don't want players to be out. So they all of a sudden miraculously started lowering their restrictions around the playoffs, not because the COVID disappears during the playoffs or anything. I mean, I believe it's right in the middle of the, historic winter season where people get sick more. But it's like, yeah, we can't afford a team being out for the playoffs. That's a lot of money to lose. So miraculously, it doesn't matter as much when the NFL has more money and more, on the line. Let's play more.
And then they scared teams and said, if you had an outbreak caused by a non-vaccinated player, you'd not only forfeit that game if you had enough players out, but you wouldn't get paid for that week. And here I am showing up to training camp, Joe, the first day, and we got 5 people who work for the organization out with COVID, all fully vaxxed.
But they were acting like it didn't happen. Oh, it can't happen. And then it started happening. Oh, it's a breakthrough case. They start manipulating language. Oh, it's a breakthrough case. It's just a rare breakthrough. It's just a not rare breakthrough. It's just millions of breakthrough cases. It's just quadruple vaccinated people getting COVID multiple times in the course of a couple weeks. It's just, yeah, we know exactly what it is. Anybody with a brain knows what's going on. Anybody that pays even a remote amount of attention knows what's going on. Anybody that didn't get swept into the political nonsense of it. Somehow this became a political thing. couple of years ago, everybody understood that Big Pharma was corrupt and everybody wanted to get the money out of politics and the lobbying money. All of a sudden, Donald Trump came around and like broke the brains of half the country. It's like orange man bad, orange man good. He can do no wrong. He can do no bad. I'll just disagree with anything that happens because it's the right wing. You're calling left-wingers right-wing conspiracy theorists because they're accurately pointing out information that everybody knew was fact 3 years ago. It's just bizarre. They're going to talk a little bit about, what big tech doesn't want people to talk about, which is, the rare people who got injured from the product. And it's a really evil scheme before I play this clip. So there's something called VAERS reporting. It's I'm not going to say it's 100% on point, but it is the government system to track vaccine injuries. When Ronald Reagan passed the PrEP Act and all these new vaccine exemption protections, they needed a way to track vaccine injuries. Because if they're going to give Big Pharma all of these liability shields, which they did in the 80s, the government realized, okay, well, we got to start tracking injuries more because we know that they happen. So they created the VAERS reporting system, right? That was government created. Alex Jones didn't create it. I didn't create it. Aaron Rodgers didn't create it. Donald Trump didn't create it. The U.S. government created VAERS. It's their tracking system. It's real. That's what they want to track injuries, okay? I'm not saying everything on it's 100%, but it's the best system we have, and a lot of it is tracked by doctors, etc. So once COVID comes around, all of a sudden VAERS reporting is this like far right-wing conspiracy theory that you're not allowed to talk about. And it's like the whole reason that VAERS reporting was made was to make sure when stuff like the COVID vaccine happened, this Operation Warp Speed, new technology, shielded from liability, they have no side effects for injuries and deaths and all this stuff. They have no liability. That's what VAERS reporting is for. Not to believe everything you read in it 100%, but to say, hey, this is what we have. This is the data. Let's look into it and make sure that this is as safe and effective as we're saying it is. But instead of doing that, they know they have no liability for all that stuff. They know they have no liability for the real injuries, no matter how rare they are or not. But then it's just so evil how big tech and social media sweeps it all under the rug entirely and just says it doesn't even exist and we're going to ban you for talking about it. You can be a snowboarder who has had a vaccine injury and now ruined your entire career, and now you can't play sports anymore. You've lost your entire career from an injury. It's real. It's confirmed. The doctors confirmed it. They'll still wipe your account off Instagram. They'll still try to shut your mouth. Imagine that. Imagine you get coerced into a product that you really didn't want to take. You just wanted to play sports. You got it. You got hurt from it. And now all of a sudden your entire existence doesn't even get to allowed. Your story is now being eliminated by social media. And it's insane what they're doing. But I'm going to play this clip anyway. I don't care. For the fact checkers and all these little evil gremlin demons, know exactly who you are. You've played a huge role. I'm talking directly to the fact checkers who are just big pharma operatives. I'm talking to the social media companies who are help covering this up. I'm talking to people in both administrations, the Biden and the Trump administrations, who have to pretend like this is the greatest human achievement in modern history and save the world, and they don't want to talk about injuries because it'll look bad on them. I'm talking to the media. I don't care if it's Fox or CNN, anybody who doesn't want to talk about this stuff because maybe one of their big sponsors is Big Pharma. I just want you guys to know I don't have all the power in the world, but you are complicit in one of the most evil schemes in modern history that treated people like slaves and prisoners and serfs, that force massed working class citizens while a bunch of rich patrons got to frolic around, that bullied the most vulnerable in society, whether it be children or low to middle income earners. You are complicit in evil, and you should be absolutely ashamed of yourself for even thinking of covering up information like what I'm about to play, because although it might be rare, at a certain point it's still real. And we don't even know how rare it really is because you guys won't talk about it, and you act like the government reporting system that they created to track this stuff shouldn't be talked about at all. Seems a little bit like you're guilty. Seems a little bit like you're trying to cover this stuff up. So I don't know what you think you're doing, but come to your senses.
And I got COVID from a fully vaxxed individual who only got vaxxed to keep his potential of being a part of the NFL.
How many people do you know that had vaccine injuries?
A few.
How bad?
Heart issues. And then like bizarre episodes that took him to the hospital. As little as like weird eye issues, that skin rashes.
You guys mind if I play that clip, you little demon gremlin fact checkers? Yeah? Does that bother you? Because you guys got to cover for Big Pharma? Did they pay Did they pay you like they paid off the TV? Is that what it is? Is this whole sicko scheme where Big Pharma pays off Big Tech to cover that stuff up? Big Pharma pays off both politicians, Trump and Biden. Big Pharma pays off the Democrats and the Republicans. Big Pharma pays off the media, so nobody talks about it. They know they protect themselves through the government for a liability shield, so they don't have to pay for any side effects and injuries. And then they start suing each other because they all want the money that's coming in. Moderna suing Pfizer, NIH is suing Moderna. Yeah? Does that bother you, little losers? Huh? Anyway, let's go on to Aaron Rodgers talking about small businesses and, explaining what we all watched happen. The new normal where hundreds of thousands of businesses got wiped out of existence while Target, Walmart, and Amazon stayed open because essential workers were allowed to put themselves at risk. But a mom and pop shop that are trying to keep their family business open for a century, that was open for a century, they have to lose everything because it's just so normal.
And small business is the backbone of America, right? And how many thousands and thousands and thousands of small businesses closed and never opened again? Restaurants, bars, establishments like that because of COVID, right? And safety. Started as 2 weeks to flatten the curve and then went to lockdowns.
Yeah.
In places like Chico, California, where I'm from, where there were multiple stretches of time where there were 0 cases in the entire city of 80,000 or
People forget because these things happen so fast, and I'm so glad that my information's up here. It's saved on multiple websites. It's not just Facebook and YouTube. I have it on BitChute, etc. Now I have it on Rumble because history is getting distorted. History is getting distorted by Democrats that just got brainwashed. History is even getting distorted by a lot of Republicans who just have their heads so far up Trump's behind that they just don't even pay attention to anything anymore. They just listen to him and get brainwashed. So I'm glad I have all this stuff kind of laid out and documented because my reporting, unlike Rachel Maddow, actually stands the test of time and is still accurate to this day. So when they did 15 days to slow the spread, they were never claiming to just stop it completely. They were never claiming they had the power to save the whole world. They said, we need 15 days to slow the spread. They built the Javits Center and they turned it into a hospital because they were worried that the numbers were going to get so rapid and people were going to get so sick that there wasn't going to be enough hospital room. They built up the Javits Center. Google that, or DuckDuckGo or whatever you want to use. Most of those hospital beds, if not almost all of them, went unused because they overcompensated. They thought something was going to happen. It didn't quite happen to that extent. So they just wanted to give themselves 15 days to slow the spread. They weren't claiming to stop it completely. They just wanted time to build up hospitals. And then once that happened, this is what happens when you give big pharma, big tech, big media, and big government power. They don't want to let it go. Gavin Newsom gets power. Phil Murphy gets power. Donald Trump starts printing money. The Federal Reserve starts printing money. Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi start wetting their pants, getting excited, printing money, signing stuff off, and their pens are going crazy. And everybody just starts saying, well, now that we've normalized this, now that we've normalized the lockdown, let's just start moving the goalposts. So now instead of 15 days to slow the spread, it's, well, the death rate's too high because Donald Trump looked at an imperial model behind him or a model from one of these schools that's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, saw the curve and said, we got to continue this thing. And then the governors mostly listened, except for, South Dakota and Georgia for a certain extent. And then the deaths are too high. And then once the deaths start going down, then the cases are too high. And then once the cases start going down, some countries started playing zero COVID. Like he said in Chico, California, the rest of the country has cases. Maybe they don't have as many cases, but still, it's a state rule. Or it's New Zealand, I think, wanted to go to zero COVID at one point. So they just keep moving the goalposts, just like they said, the reason that we're testing unvaccinated people all the time is because you're putting the whole community at risk because you can get and spread the virus. Once they found out months later that vaccinated people could also get sick, could also test positive for COVID, did they change their testing policy and say, well, now it actually scientifically doesn't make sense to only test unvaccinated people if we're going to test at all, which I personally don't believe in testing people all the time like they're factory farm animals. I think it's pathetic, and I refuse to be treated like a pig on a conveyor belt, so I've never had a PCR test shoved up my nose because I don't want it. But in general, it's like if you're going to follow some sort of logical science and say, well, we need to test everybody because we don't want you to spread it, then why didn't they start testing the vaccinated people? It's so obvious. It's so simple. But, we'll get into it in a little bit. A lot of people just like to be told what to do. Speaking of big pharma and stuff like this, that wasn't even that long ago, less than 15 years ago, Pfizer getting fined by billions of dollars. I mean, there's big pharma corruption all the time. Every couple of weeks, every couple of months, there's a product pulled off the market. That sunscreen that we told you is safe might cause cancer. This product that was once safe isn't safe anymore. This happens all the time, but don't question this cash cow of a product because it's the most expensive product ever. I'm just going to keep saying this without being a broken record. Big Pharma paid 75% of television ads in 2020. Guys, we don't allow Djokovic to play in the U.S. Open, and it's sponsored by Moderna. They're dumping more money than ever into the U.S. Open. Big Pharma is paying off both sides of politics. Big Pharma is paying off the Trump and Biden administration. Big Pharma is paying off all 4 candidates in the Georgia special runoff. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Big Pharma paid them all off, okay? Big Pharma is just funneling money out to influencers, celebrities. They're just paying everybody off, and then they have this product that's hitting, I think Pfizer hit record highs with the COVID vaccine in the first quarter. You're not allowed to question it because of science. I mean, if people are this weak and dumb, you get this type of stuff. Like, if you want to be ruled, you'll be ruled. If you want to be enslaved and treated like you're a factory farm cash cow, or you want to be a worker that wears a mask for 3 years while your rich patrons frolic around drinking wine without a mask on because they somehow think they're more important than you or something, these type of stuff is just going to keep continuing until people stand up for themselves. And really, the stand up isn't anything crazy. You don't have to run in the street and get set up by the feds because the vaccine salesman set you up. All you have to do is stand up for yourself peacefully and legally in this world and tell people who you are. I'm not a prisoner. I'm not an animal. Stop treating me like one. Let's go on. I have so many clips here. I got to make sure I do it. I want to talk about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, small business, pharma trust. All right, I want to talk about this clip as well. Let's play.
And these are the people we're supposed to trust? Like, all of a sudden, people put aside all of their thoughts that they had kept. You talk to anyone about whether or not the pharmaceutical companies were ethical, whether or not they were telling the truth, whether or not they promoted dangerous medications that were unnecessary, and everybody would say yes. Those same people were calling you a plague rat. It's kind of funny now that it's over.
Then they talk about, how the people that were making fun of Aaron Rodgers weren't healthy. That was my first intuition in March. I didn't know if this really was this crazy bioweapon or something that was going to hurt people, or if it was over-exaggerated and we were getting, conned into lockdowns and stuff. I wasn't really sure, but the first thing, whether it was really bad or not, I was like, if the government, I'm not an authoritarian. If the government can be authoritarian and lock you in your house, I'm not for it. But if you're going to go authoritarian, then why not go authoritarian and give everyone healthy food? Why not go authoritarian and make everyone do jumping jacks every day, right? If we're in a pandemic, don't you got to make sure people work out in their house, or else they're going to get fatter and more sick, and they're going to overwhelm the hospitals for other reasons? It's so obvious this is just a big pharma cash cow scheme. And it's obvious since March, whether the death rate is 10% or 0.0001% or somewhere in between, whether it was as bad as they thought it was or whatever. Use your brain, people. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's like, come on. That's the first thing I thought in March before they locked down. I'm like, if you can use executive power to just put everybody in their houses and arrest people, then why not have on television, instead of just them selling pharmacy products all the time and Corona beers and, the high fructose corn syrup and cereal commercials and all these shitty foods that are illegal all over the place, just pumping people with canola oil and high fructose corn syrup. How come we don't have, if Trump's going to be on television with Fauci and Birx all day for 4 hours and we're going to sit there and watch them talk about stuff, why not have a call to action and say, everybody do 10 push-ups right now. Everybody do some jumping jacks or put your hands in the air. No, of course they didn't. They don't give a crap. It's so freaking obvious. The kids got fatter. More people overdosed and died. The average person got fatter. The average person got less healthy. The average person got psychologically abused and kicked out of their routine. Some people never recovered. Many people died. And nobody gives a shit about it. But once again, to not play the victim, if we're this stupid as a society where nobody asks these questions and says, if you're going to go authoritarian for big pharma and go authoritarian for lockdowns, then why not use your power to make sure people are in shape? Because in shape people are not good customers. People that have control over their mind, body, and soul are not big pharma's best customers. The best customers are people who don't pay attention, want the easy way out, and just listen to everything they say. So if everybody got in great shape, that's a threat to their entire existence, whether it be government or pharma. It's so obvious. Like, and I know some people like to play naive because it makes sense, like, strategically on social media to just act stupid all the time, because if you actually tell the truth too much, they like to censor stuff. But it's like, you know, I'm listening to like Aaron Rodgers and Joe Rogan. It's like, I know Aaron Rodgers knows that this is like, you know, that a lot of this is not just random. And Rogan is, you know, he likes to play the role. I get it. He's just playing his, you know, he does what he does, and he hosts a lot of great interviews like this. So I think it's a net positive. But am I supposed to truly believe that this just all spontaneously, like, they just screwed up and made people fatter? They just screwed up and made kids fatter. They just screwed up and had more people overdosing from their other legal drugs. They just screwed up and, you know, pumped the vaccine into hundreds of millions of people's arms and told them that it was going to stop the spread. And, you know, if you didn't get it, that you were causing it. It's like that. I'm supposed to believe that that's just all a spontaneous mistake when they've done this over and over and over again. Cash out, get caught, cash out, make a mistake, cash out, cash out, cash out. Get what I'm saying? Cash out. They make money. They, you know, they get fined. Well, how much money did they make? $2.3 billion fine. That sucks. But how much money did they make off that product? How much did their business grow? You know, if you get bopped for a couple billion, but you made tens of billions on certain things, like has happened in other instances, business-wise, it's like it's good business to just keep doing that. So let's listen to them talk about this documentary called Dopesick. I haven't seen it, or a movie, TV show about some other drugs in the pharmacy industry.
Dopesick, that's the premise of that whole show. Like, they were lying about whether or not these things were addictive when they knew they were. This is the same people. The same people that were telling you that you had to get jabbed are the same people that were telling you that opioids were not addictive.
That paid out $2.3 billion in the biggest fraud case in the history of the world.
Yeah, and then there's the Vioxx case that killed more than 60,000 Americans.
Which, when I was in college, everybody was taking Vioxx. Everybody. All my teammates were taking Vioxx.
It's dangerous shit. I know a guy who had a stroke from it. A guy who fought in the UFC.
Chantix, right?
Yep.
As well. I think you said on your show, but there's something crazy. I can't remember the exact number, but how many different products get pulled every single month that were
FDA approved?
FDA approved.
Yeah, it's a lot. They had clear information that Vioxx was going to be damaging to people. They knew there was problems, and they literally said there's going to be some issues, but we're going to do very well. That's literally internal memo saying we're going to do well financially. But people are going to have, like, that, those kind of issues, like cardiovascular issues, blood clotting issues, strokes. They knew it was going to kill people. They knew it. And they got charged. I believe what happened was they made $12 billion and they were fined $5, which is
it's a good profit margin.
It's just crazy that you could have any profit margin off of killing 60,000 people.
I mean, that's kind of just what they do, though. They just keep doing it over and over. The Sackler family, opioids, you know, now there's a huge fentanyl problem coming in illegally across the border. Legal drugs, illegal drugs, you know, this, that. But it's totally different now. You know, it has to be different now because the television and your boss told you that you're going to lose your job if you don't comply to Big Pharma. That's how you know it's changed now. All the corruption of the past and the present, there's still multi-billion-dollar lawsuits going through with, I believe Johnson & Johnson has a crazy lawsuit that they've been in the process of the last couple of years. I don't know if it ended or not. But, you know, this one has to be different, guys. It's got to be perfect, and it's got to be just right for your health because it's a pandemic, and it's got to be because, you know, if you don't listen, we're going to cover your face like you were a captured prisoner of a foreign country in war. We're going to treat your kids like garbage. We're going to have, you know, we're going to have Mark Zuckerberg talk about the importance of, I'm going to play this clip real quick. I don't know if the formatting's going to be right, but it's fine. I made this for Instagram. This is Mark Zuckerberg talking about the importance of facial expressions and smiles because most of our communication is nonverbal, you know, instead of verbal. Mark Zuckerberg, God bless you, buddy, understands that for the metaverse when they're building technology, but apparently, you know, I get censored on his platforms for saying the same thing in the real world. It's not going to be formatted right, but you're going to be able to hear it.
In virtual reality, have your face be tracked so that way your avatar, it's not just like this still thing, but if you smile or if you frown or if you pout or whatever your expression is, have that actually just in real time translate to your avatar. I mean, that's obviously like our facial expressions are just a huge, that's like a, there's more nonverbal communication when people are with each other than verbal communication.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. So what do you think happened when you aided and abetted people taking away children's right to facial expression, force masked them, and then your companies started banning and censoring parents and teachers who were talking about the obvious dangers and consequences of mask mandates? We're getting to a really creepy part in humanity when the people who run major parts of our life are admitting nonverbal communication is important in the metaverse, but they're totally fine with taking that away from you in the real world for years and targeting people screaming to the high heavens about the abusive consequences of taking away children and average people's faces. On YouTube, I have a strike on my channel because I criticized masks, and I accurately did it, but they took it out of context and said it was against their policy. On Facebook, they had multiple groups that were trying to unmask America deleted off of Facebook, right? But when Mark Zuckerberg's building the metaverse, he understands that nonverbal communication is just as, if not more important than verbal communication. So he's trying to track your face and your smile to make sure it's like exactly the same so you can have a real life experience in the metaverse. So, why, Mark? Why not just put masks on people and just track that so you don't know what they're saying? Doesn't that kind of ruin communication? Of course. What happens when you do that to children? Does that alter their reality? Does that psychologically abuse them? Is that going to send millions of kids into a weakened state and hinder their learning experience to turn them into young adults and adults who completely lack any sort of social cues and social interaction, understanding of how that works? Of course it will. But they'll censor you for saying that in the real world. But you get it in the metaverse. Last clip I wanted to play, and then I'm going to read some comments and take off. I'm keeping this under an hour. Joe Rogan talks about how a lot of people have been like conditioned to just listen. And he talks about jobs, but I think this happens in schools too. So listen, I think it's good to listen and learn and read. Like, don't just be someone who talks all the time and never, gains new understanding. And I'm not saying you have to be an entrepreneur, because everybody has to play their part in this world. Everyone can't be the guy who goes off and does something crazy. Like, we need people to actually do stuff and build stuff. But I think he makes a good point, and same with the school system, is they're always teaching you to be obedient. Listen to your teacher. Listen. And a lot of people are used to a 9-to-5 where they're told, you have I've had jobs before where they said you have a 15-minute lunch break, and it's impossible to even get lunch. I was in the middle of Los Angeles. It was impossible to even get lunch in 15 minutes. I got it. I tried to swallow it down. I went back. I'm like a minute or 2 minutes late, and my loser boss tells me, oh, you're losing your bonus. We're taking $60 from your check. Why? Because you were 2 minutes late for lunch. This is like the world a lot of people have to live in, where their boss is literally treating them like a non-subhuman. That's how I got treated at almost every job I was. Some people treated me good, but Joe thinks it's kind of teaching people to just listen, and that's why so many people just listened during the pandemic. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's an interesting theory.
A person who can become autonomous, a person who can have their own job where it's their business, or it's their product that they're selling, or their art that they're selling, or there's something where you could be self-sufficient. That is the biggest freedom that a person can have in this culture. And most people don't have that freedom. So most people are conditioned to have someone lay the rules out for them, tell them when they're supposed to be there, tell them what they get when they work for an hour. That most people don't have the ability to just think for themselves. It's been taken away from them because they want to make a living.
In school, I was an athlete. I played soccer. I traveled all up and down the East Coast. Like, a lot of my friends that I used to play with when I was growing up went pro or played in college, high level. But anyway, it's like school wasn't really my thing. I'm not stupid, but I guess I'm more creative. I'm more like, adventurous. So I'm not like sit in this desk for 8 hours and listen to some idiot. I couldn't do it. Anyway, one time I answered a question. We were self-grading, and the teacher says, the correct answer is B. And I raised my hand and I said, hey, isn't D right too? Because I put D. I said, isn't D right? And she goes, actually, yeah. I kind of embarrassed her because she had two right answers in a multiple choice. And she says, well, D's right, but B is more right. And I said, do I get credit since I was right too? And she goes, no. From that point on, I mean, I never liked school, but I could identify as a 7th grader. I'm not saying I was like super smart, but I was intellectual for my age. I identified that I was smarter than my teacher. Like, if she's too stupid or too egotistical to give me credit for a question I got right, like, she didn't say you're wrong. You're right, but I'm embarrassed because I'm an idiot, and I just want to say it's wrong because it's not as right as the other answer. I stopped really caring about school. I'm like, this lady's an idiot, and she's unfair, and she picks favorites, and it's like this whole social game. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm playing video games, I'm playing sports. They're trying to shove pharmacy pills in my mouth. They told my mom, thank God my mom has, you know, classic intuition. They said, your son needs Adderall, your son needs Ritalin, your son needs all this stuff. And my mom said, no, my son, there's nothing wrong with my son. He's not getting pills. Thank God my mom was one of those moms. I've taken Adderall in college to study, and my goodness, it's like crack cocaine, more like it's crazy. It's one of the craziest things I've ever taken. It's insane. It makes you sweat. You know what I'm saying? You feel weird the next day. They're giving this to like 5th graders, 6th graders. They're jacking them up on like, you know what I'm saying? Because why? What if they're a painter? What if they're like me, that I wanted to be a hip hop artist and now I'm an entrepreneur and I'm still just as crazy as I was in 5th grade, except I've made my crazy work and I found how to be productive in my own right. I didn't need to take pharmacy pills. They're shoving pills up everybody's throats all the time. Big Pharma has taken over the world, but that's the world we live in now in school. It's like, sit there and listen to your teacher and conform, and if you don't conform, we're going to try to shove pills in your mouth. You know? So I think Rogan's onto something with the job, because it's good to be a team player. Like, you don't want to be a crappy employee that shows up like 5 hours late and is a total loser. But at the same time, I do think so many people complied in America because they're used to, you know, K through college, just complying, conforming, listening, follow orders. You go to a job, you follow orders. Now there's this thing where they tell you to sit inside, and so many people are just so okay, you know, with following these orders. So just to wrap it up, I mean, I'm not saying I don't like to promote, because I do. It's just, I guess I'm a hard crowd to sell. I'm bored by a lot of content nowadays. The Aaron Rodgers podcast was one of the best podcasts I've listened to in a long time, as far as like mainstream, like things that are going to reach millions of people. Aaron Rodgers is highly intelligent. He knows his stuff. He's not a dummy. He's not just operating off intuition, which is fine. He knows his stuff. He knows his facts. He said that there was a $2.3 billion, you know, fine. He was 100% right. He's memorized this type of stuff. It's almost like, I'm not going to say he watches my show, because I don't think he does. He doesn't follow me. But someone in my genre, or somebody that's talking about similar stuff, that's educating people, you know, maybe he listens to RFK Jr. or somebody, or Dr. Shiva. But clearly Aaron Rodgers has been doing his research. He says he reads a lot of books. He goes to Barnes & Noble a lot. Highly intelligent guy, highly knowledgeable about the big pharma stuff. And perhaps most importantly is he's not a coward. I don't care how good of a rapper somebody is. If they're a loser and they're making our country worse, I don't like them anymore. I don't care how good of an athlete somebody is. If they're a conformist loser or a dweeb, or, you know, somebody like Steve Kerr, who's just a total baby libtard shill, you know, I don't care anymore. So my favorite people are Djokovic, Aaron Rodgers, even Kyrie Irving, people that have a spine, because, you know, making money's great. Being physically fit is definitely healthy, and being a good athlete is entertaining. I love sports. But if you don't stand for anything, who are you? You know, what's your legacy really? And Aaron Rodgers, not only was he the MVP last year, he defied Big Pharma. He defied all these mandates. He didn't let them ridicule and mock him and bully him into getting it. And he still won the MVP of the entire league, despite the fact that the entire mainstream media was coming after him all year. And I'm sure the NFL was treating him like garbage behind the scenes as well. So thank you to Aaron Rodgers, not only for standing up for yourself and all last year going on Pat McAfee's show to talk about this stuff, but thank you for going on Rogan, who has probably the biggest podcast in the world, and really giving 3 hours of just pure gems. Like, so many gems were dropped, and I was just super pumped to hear him on that podcast, just dropping so much important information. Because, this is how we change the world. Yeah, voting matters. I'm a voter. I don't think it's going to solve everything, but I do think it's important on a local level and even national. There are some implications. But really, it's like, who are we as a nation? Are we a nation of a bunch of fake celebrities who will take a bunch of pharma money and big dollars from corporations and shut their mouth and make money? Is that who we are? Like Rogan said, there's only, I don't remember if it's like prescription to patient, but there's a certain pharma rule only in America and New Zealand. Guys, we're not normal. We are the anomaly of the world when it comes to big pharma. Our country is deranged. Our country's screwed up. They're hurting us, okay? If you look at our food, there is crazy practices. I'll do a whole video about it like I did with my friend with the milk illegal. There's 30 things that are widely disgusting in America that are legal, that are illegal in other countries. All this big pharma promotion on television, most of it is illegal in other countries because they've identified that it's not healthy for the masses. Our country has been swallowed up by big pharma, and it's not normal and it's not healthy, and nobody's coming to save you. Donald Trump's in on it. Biden's in on it. They do this fake WWE fight, and then people pick a sports team. It's like, do you like Team Blue or Team Red? I think Team Red is the better team at the moment, but the leader of it is in on what I'm talking about, and he has no plans to, change the food or the big pharma structure of the country. So I'm not saying that there's not a benefit to voting, but if your whole life revolves around the characters of Trump and Biden, whether you're a Democrat and you're deranged and you've lost your mind over Donald Trump and you think he's done everything wrong ever and he's literally Hitler, like you're lying to yourself. It's time to crack out of that brainwashed like CNN mind frame that you've been caught in and stop like distorting genders and being weird. And then if you go to the right wing, it's like a lot of people think they're better just because they're not Democrats, and you might be. I mean, you might have better takes, but a lot of people are brainwashed from just like right-wing pundits too, because it's like, instead of getting to the core, okay, pick a side, don't be a fence sitter, tell the truth, don't be apologetic about it, but at the same time, get to the root of what's going on. A lot of these people, it's a circus. It's like a big surface level circus where you're going to fight on the surface, but you're going to end up in a lockdown. You're going to fight on the circus, but on the surface in the circus, but big pharma is still going to control the country. You're going to fight, but shitty foods are still going to be legal that are legal in other countries. It's going to keep happening until people get to the root of problems. And part of the political circus, even though you get little wins here or there, part of the circus is the fact that you cling on to these characters like Trump or anti-Trump or Biden. That's part of the circus. Even if you're right about who's bad, that's still like surface level stuff. They like when people do that because it's like, all right, these the blue dummies and the red dummies are just going to fight over this stuff, but they're never going to take it 4 layers deeper and realize that there's stuff below it. And when it comes to terms like the deep state or terms like the swamp, what people need to understand is there's perhaps no industry swampier than big pharma. You could talk about the intelligence communities, that's fine, but when it comes to corporations, big pharma is the swampiest of all the swamps. And Trump put the swampiest HHS director in. He's acts like a swampy swamper, and he just runs around saying how great big pharma is, and that's the shtick he's going with, even though it's fake. And and people who defend him, it's all a joke. It's all a big circus. So I'm not saying you can't vote for him, but people got to get to the core of this because you're not draining the swamp if you're gonna take the corporate swamp that's the swampiest of all the swamps and make it swampier and swampier and swampier. It's just a joke. All right, I'm gonna read a few comments. We got a couple minutes and then I'm out. All right. Someone said big pharma for the win. Someone said the connection here is way better on YouTube than YouTube. I don't know if you're on Facebook or YouTube. Yeah. Well, appreciate everybody on Facebook. Appreciate everybody on YouTube. I really want to keep this under an hour, so I'll try to take maybe one comment and then we're going to keep it. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to end it because I said I was going to keep it under an hour. So appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Share this video if you'd like. And I don't really like to promote other people's stuff all the time. Like, oh my God, go watch this. But really, really great to have somebody that's a high-level athlete, a huge reach, really questioning big pharma in all these very common sense ways. I think it's important. And, just to wrap it up, I don't think this country is going to heal or get better until we get to the root of this big pharma thing. And neither political party is doing that. So I really think it's important. And if it doesn't happen, there's nothing's like if you get If you get bopped for $5 billion, but you made $12 billion, that's a net profit of $7 billion. You know how much money have they made? They're suing each other because they all want the money. So as of now, even if people start waking up to what they did, you know, if they get away with it scot-free like Epstein, Maxwell accomplices and stuff, there's no incentive for them to ever change. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. And I want to keep this brief so more people will watch it. Thanks again. And thanks to everybody supporting on patreon.com/raretalk or Facebook supporters or super follows on Twitter. It means the world to me. Thank you.